Hi everybody, I'm Julie and welcome to Still Sassy. Now, alongside being a coach for women over 50, I'm also a makeup artist. And the thing that I'm probably asked more often than anything else is how to deal with hooded eyes. It's a massive topic. There are Facebook groups dedicated to this one thing. Without a doubt, it's a big struggle for many people, but it's key to remember that there's absolutely nothing wrong with hooded eyes. They're not bad, they're not ugly, they're just an eye shape. So today I'm making video 1 of 2, the next one will be next week, both about hooded eyes. So this first video is all about prepping your eyes for makeup application. These steps make a big difference in how your makeup looks when it's finished. It also helps your creation stay put, because when you've got hooded eyes you can get some transfer from your lower lids to your top lids and vice versa. And we don't want that. We want a beautiful creation. Now I want to say first that we're not going to make this hard. Yes, with hooded eyes there are different techniques to putting your eye makeup on, that's for sure. But they're not difficult, they're perhaps just different and need a bit of practice. This is actually such a hot topic that I'm going to be dedicating a playlist to hooded eyes. So keep checking back for lots of useful info, including products, techniques and inspiration. If you haven't subscribed to this channel already, I would love it if you could just snip to the button below wherever it is and click on that subscribe button and the like button too. It's always really helpful, thank you. So first things first, what is a hooded eye? What does one look like? A hood is created by an extra layer of skin just under the brows that comes lower and lower, so sits on your eyelids, the one that you can see the most, the mobile eyelid. Now some people are born with hooded eyes. Some others, like me, start to get hooded eyes as they get older. I haven't got massively hooded eyes, but I have noticed that particularly on the outer corners of my eyes, I am starting to get hood there, and it has changed the way that I put my makeup on. Basically, as we get older, the skin around the eye loses elasticity and everything just starts to droop a little bit. If you apply eyeshadow to hooded eyes without using the hooded eye technique, then you're probably not going to see much of your eyeshadow, because the top lid, this hooded bit here, will come down further and further over your eyelid, making the makeup impossible to see. And that's why we do the hooded eye technique, because we want your eyes to look great and sparkle and pop with colour, and this technique will allow that to happen. The aim with this sort of technique is to make your eyes look bigger, brighter and basically more dazzling. Now, hooded eyes are beautiful. People who have them are quick to think that it's a problem. It makes them look less than lovely, that they're a bad thing or high maintenance. But none of this is true. Sure, it takes time to learn how to work with a hooded eye, but that's the same for whatever shape eye you've got. If you've got almond shapes, round shaped, whatever your eye shape is, there's a different sort of technique for applying your makeup. So this is no different. My eyes are almond, with a slight hood now, but I've also got one eye bigger than the other, and that means I've got to apply my makeup differently on each eye. So everybody's different and we've all got challenges. Hooded eyes is just another one of them, but as I said earlier, they do look beautiful. Blake Lively, Jennifer Aniston and Selena Gomez all have hooded eyes, to name but a few famous people. There are tons and tons and tons of them that have got hooded eyes, and nobody's going to say they don't look beautiful, because they do. In fact, mostly the celebrities with hooded eyes make a feature of them. They don't hide them. They do what we're going to talk about here and just make their eyes look as beautiful as they possibly can. I do understand though that women with hooded eyes can feel less confident about putting eye makeup on and wearing eye makeup. Whether you were born with hooded eyes or have gained them as you've got older, it can be the same result. You can lose your confidence in how your eyes look, but there really is no need, and hopefully through the playlist I'm going to be creating on hooded eyes, all is going to be okay. So the easiest way to know whether you've got hooded eyes or not is to examine them in a mirror. Look straight into the mirror, don't drop your head or lift it higher, just look straight on and ask yourself, can you see your lower lid, this part here? Can you see that at all? Can you see it partially? Is some of it covered by the fold above? If any of the questions above have been answered with a yes, then you've got hooded eyes. Now some, like me, haven't got massively hooded eyes. I may get them as I get even older, but some have. But it's the same technique regardless. We're going to love our hooded eyes. So now I'm going to move on to these tips. There are 5 tips in this first video. And step number 1 is to use an eye primer. But before you apply your primer, your eyelids need to be clean. So you're going to take a cotton bud or a cotton round and some micellar water and just give your eyelids a little bit of a clean. So you don't need to use much of the water, a little dab is enough, and just clean up your eyes on your lids, right up until your brow from your lashes, to make sure that it's free from any grit or grease or anything else that might be in there. Now let that dry, and then we're going to move on to applying a primer. Now you apply the primer from your lashes right up to your brows. We're using an eye primer, not a face primer and not a concealer. Now the primer is going to help keep your eyeshadow exactly where it should be. It's also going to combat oils that may start to form on your eyelids as the day goes on. It's also going to help with creasing and smudging and transferring. So it's a little powerhouse really. Primer also makes any coloured eyeshadows that you wear look even more vibrant. Now some people say, can I not use concealer? And the answer is no. The skin on your eyelid is really thin and light, and concealers are too heavy for it. If you put concealer on, you're just going to make your eyelid heavier, and we don't need that at all. Quite the opposite in fact. So there are lots of eye primers on the market now. I'm using my tried and tested Too Faced Insurance, which you've probably seen me use before. But NARS have one, it's a smudge proof eyeshadow base, which is available actually in different shades, different tints, so you can match your eyelid shade if you want to do that. Although I've never tried it, the P. Louise Rumour base is supposed to be really good, and that's quite a nice budget price as well. I think it's £12. Of course ELF do one. ELF do everything now, don't they? And everything they do is really, really good. And theirs is called Lock It Down, and it's £6, so proper bargain. Now tip number 2 is to set the eyelid with powder. Now we're going to use a finely milled loose powder for this. You can use white, which is what I'm using here, which will brighten up that area, but you can also use something that's more closely linked to your eyelid shade anyway. Now powder evens out the skin tone even more and just creates a beautiful base for the eyeshadow to be put onto. You're basically just wafting it along very lightly onto your eyelids, all the way again from the lashes to the brow. Now the one I've used here is the Laura Mercier brightening powder for under eyes, but as I say, you can use any you like. By Terry do a white one which is also very nice, but budget powders such as ELF and Revolution would be fine too. You're not going to use a lot, it is just a fine dusting, just to set that primer in place and create a lovely base. Then tip number 3 is about the eyebrows. I think when you've got hooded eyes, the eyebrows become more important. You want everything to look lifted up, and your eyebrows can help with that. So here I've already used the NYX Lift and Snatch to draw some fine eyebrow hairs into my brows, but then with the gel, and the one I'm using is the L'Oreal Got To Be, you're effectively just going to comb your eyelids upwards, just because by doing that you make your eyes look more open and give an illusion that you've got more space between your eyelids and your eyebrows. So combing upwards in this instance is key. You can, if you like, with the tail ends, not push them quite so far upwards and make them come out a little bit more that way, but don't let them droop. We are going outwards, not down. Droopiness is not good with hooded eyes, everything's going up. Tip number 4 is about eyeshadow choice. Now the brand doesn't really matter at all. It could be budget or high-end. What does matter is that you choose one that's nicely pigmented so you get a nice payoff. It's blendable and, more importantly, long-lasting. Again, we want to avoid any sort of transfer. And to be honest, that's what we look for in an eyeshadow mostly anyway, whether you've got hooded eyes or not. So your world's your oyster a little bit really. Now I wanted to say, and this is really important, that you don't have to stick to neutrals or creams or muted colours or matte colours. That is just a little bit of an old wives' tale. When I apply the eyeshadow next week, in my hooded eye technique number 2, I will show you how to use different sorts of eyeshadows, different sorts of colours with no problem. Now both powder and cream shadows work beautifully with hooded eyes. With powder eyeshadow, they are generally easier to blend, making them ideal for creating seamless gradients and also creating the false crease, which we'll be doing next week. Of course, powders come in a massive array of colours, And you can get shimmers and mattes and satins and all sorts of stuff. And when paired with a good primer, which obviously we've just done, they will last a long time without creasing, which is definitely a win. Now, cream eyeshadows are really easy to apply. You can just swipe them on with a finger or a brush and they can look lovely straight away. There is a limitation with blendability because they can dry quite quickly, so sometimes you have to be quick off the mark to get them blended to how you want them to look. Creams are often more hydrating, so they're great for mature skin or skin prone to dryness or flakiness. And some of them do last a very long time and can be waterproof too. Makes them ideal for hooded eyes where we're trying to avoid any sort of transfer. Of course, you could go the best of both worlds route. Use a cream shadow as a base and then layer powder on top. This really improves the pop of the colour and also the longevity. Now, I brought some eyeshadows along just to show different ones. So this is the Urban Decay Born to Run, which is a lovely palette, very bright as you can see in places. Then this one is the Bobbi Brown In a Flash, which I also love. This has got a lot of matte and some shimmer, so it's great for all sorts of uses. That was a present, which is also very nice. I've loved this Colourpop Fortune palette. It's quite a nice mix of colours with shimmers and matte, but sadly I don't think they do it anymore. Now, Colourpop do some amazing eyeshadow palettes, so even if they don't do this one, they'll do something that you like, I'm sure. You just need to go online and browse through. And then there's good old Urban Decay. This is their Naked 3 palette, which is quite pinky, beigey, but very nice. And then there are some great budget palettes around, of course, many, many, many. This one is the NYX Ultimate, and the whole palette is called Ash. And then with cream shadows, I love a cream stick, and I use these Kiko long-lasting eyeshadow sticks all the time. I have got many colours. This is a red one. This one is a copper colour, which looks absolutely beautiful on. And these are really well priced. They're around about £10, give or take. And that's why I've got so many of them, because they are so lovely. They go on beautifully. They blend nicely. Although, like I've already said, you do sometimes have to work quickly with a cream shadow, and the Kiko is one of those that you have to work quite quickly with, not massively quickly. And then Beauty Pie do a nice range as well. This is sort of a champagne colour, and they're very, very reasonable priced and look lovely on too. So you've got a massive choice. Don't think that you're limited with choice because you've got hooded eyes. That's just not the case. I'm stopping that right here. You've got all sorts of choices, and we'll talk much more about that next week. And then tip number 5 is a tip that's about ease of application, and that is to use small brushes. When you've got hooded eyes, you've got much less space to work with, and if you try and use a big brush, say like this one, which is a nice brush, I'm not saying it's not, this is by Real Techniques, but it's quite big. If you've got hooded eyes, trying to get that into the area that you need to get into to apply the shadow properly is going to be quite tricky. And although these are beautiful brushes too, I think these are by Colourpop, you can see that the bristles are quite long and they're actually move quite a bit. So again, when you're trying to blend out, they're probably going to move around a bit too much. You're probably not going to be able to get them right where you want them with your hooded eye. Whereas something like this, which are also Real Techniques, are quite small, well, very small, and one of them is thinner than the other. I don't know if you can see that properly. But these you can get right where you want them to be. It doesn't have to be Real Techniques. I just like these. It could be any make that you like, but just make sure that they're small enough to reach the places that you need them to reach without just like making a mess of your eyeshadow. Small brush like this as well. This is Charlotte Tilbury's smudge brush. Can be useful just for getting the shadows into places where you might struggle. So I sometimes use this right into the corner of my eye, certainly my under eye. A smudge brush like that can be very useful. So tip number 5 is to buy the right brushes. You don't have to spend a fortune, just make sure they're not too big that you can't use them. And that's my 5 tips for prepping your hooded eyes to receive the eyeshadow in the best way possible, and also how to choose eyeshadow. So join me in next week's video where I'll be showing you how to put makeup on to your hooded eyes. Thanks for watching everybody, hope you found that very useful, and I'll see you in the next one.